Hi everyone, and welcome to Creative Chelsea. Today I'm excited to be sharing with you my May 2022 Artisan Design Team Project. And I was asked to work with the Sending Smiles stamp set and the Sending dies. If you are new to my channel and want to see more of my videos, click on the subscribe button and then the bell for notifications. I would love to be your Stampin' Up! Demonstrator and help you with any of your paper crafting needs. To purchase any of the products you see me use today, please visit my online store, and the link is in the description below. So today I've got some really fun, quick and easy techniques that I'm going to share with you. One of them includes adding texture to a blended background. And my second technique is how to create these beautiful soft neon colors using vellum, heat embossing, and a blending brush. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to start with is our stamping. And for both cards, we need to stamp our images in Versamark with white embossing powder on some vellum. And I just want to share with you really quickly before we begin this beautiful stamp set that I will be using. It's a new one that is available. It's in the new 2022-2023 annual catalog, and it's called Sending Smiles. It has this really fun flower builder. They're kind of wild flower looking to me. And then some really fun greetings that go with the word sending. So you've got like sending smiles across the miles, sending comfort and strength. So really fun, kind of like a builder stamp set. And then of course, it comes bundled with the sending dies. So you can purchase them separately, but you're going to save yourself a little bit of money when you purchase them together in a bundle. So what I've done is I've placed some of the flowers and the stems on some clear blocks, and I've got some scratch vellum papers that I had. The size really doesn't matter. I like to use an embossing buddy when I am heat embossing. So I'm just adding a lot of powder to the top of the vellum cardstock on both of those. And then I've got my Versamark, and I am going to stamp one of each of these images. It's a little tricky stamping on vellum. You can sometimes get a little bit of a shift in your image, so you really want to be careful to just press firmly but not to move your image around. And then the top of this flower here has its own image so that you can stamp it in a different color, but I'm just going to go ahead and line it up. So now we're going to add some powder. This is the white embossing powder on top, and I'm going to sprinkle it actually over so that I don't get any powder on the back of the vellum. Since I didn't add any embossing powder back there, I don't want to accidentally get any powder that's stuck there. Okay, so there's that first one, and then the second one. And if you've added enough embossing powder, you really shouldn't have any issue with the powder sticking to places that you don't want. Okay, so you're just going to go ahead and heat that up, and then what you're looking for is the powder to melt and get shiny. So now you can see those beautiful images on the vellum. And if you're doing both cards, you're going to want to go ahead and stamp these other images as well for the second card. I have already done that off camera. So now we're going to use the coordinating dies to cut out our stamped images. And you can see here that the die set comes with a lot of images to cut out the stamps. And then you also have sending. It's a nice thin script like this one, and then a big bubble that can go underneath. And then you also have two tag greeting label type shapes. Okay, so now I'm ready to cut these out with my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. So our next step is to do our blending. And for this, I'm going to use our blending brushes and some of the new in colors They are the 2022-2024 in colors. And I've got a piece of basic white cardstock that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And I'm doing it on a larger piece so that I can trim it down. The first color I'm going to do is the Sweet Sorbet. Just go ahead and get a little bit of color and then blend it onto your cardstock. I'm looking for a nice soft color, and I want to cover about 1/4 of my cardstock. The next color I want to do is Starry Sky. This is a nice dark blue color. The next color is Tahitian Tide. This is a nice bright blue. You could go darker with your colors if you want. I'm keeping them kind of light today. Then I'm going to do Parakeet Party. And I'm just going to rotate it, and I'm going to fold up one of the corners here so that I don't get fingerprints on my blend. So it will look something like this when you're all done. So now we're going to create this texture over our blending. What I'm looking for is something that looks like a dry brush texture on my card. And so I've got the fat tip water painter brush. I don't have any water in the bladder. And the reason for that is because this needs to be pretty dry. And if I've got water here, then it's going to get more wet than I want. I'm going to add a little bit of water just from my bowl and then tap that off onto a paper towel until the bristles begin to separate. Do you see how they're clumping together? And then I'm just going to drag that across my blend, going back and forth. And then with a different piece, like paper towel or tissue or something, pick up any extra water so it doesn't sit on your cardstock. And you're going to do this back and forth over all the colors. What happens is the ink is lifted up and becomes lighter when the water touches it. So it kind of helps create this fun texture. So if you get any extra water, go ahead and dab it off with a dry paper towel. Okay, so there you can see how that texture really adds a fun touch to the blended background. So once that is dry, we're going to trim it down to 3 1/4 by 4 1/2, which means we need to remove about 1/2 inch from each side. So you'll end up with something that looks like this. Nice clean edges. It's really pretty. So now that we have our background and our images stamped and cut out, let's go ahead and put this card together. I have a piece of regular basic white cardstock that I've embossed with the gingham embossing folder. I'm just going to go ahead and add that to my front of my card with some liquid adhesive. There's going to be a little border. This piece is 4 inches by 5 1/4. Then I have a piece of basic black cardstock that is 1/8 of an inch bigger than the piece we just trimmed down. And so I'm going to have a nice thin border around this. So it's like 3 3/8 by 4 5/8. So you get about a 1/16 of an inch border all the way around that. So next I'm going to add a little bit of black twine around the center and tie a bow. So I've got about 20 inches here. This black twine comes from the Baker's Twine Essentials pack, which has 5 different twine colors that are really neutral. You got black, white, and then some different grays and tans. So it's a really neutral pack. Let's see if I have enough to wrap it around twice. I might. So you can pick one side to tie on. My original card has the tie on the left. This one I'll probably do on the right. If you wanted to wrap it, maybe cut a little bigger piece, then you could have a little more here to work with, but it's okay for me. I think my next one I'll do 24 inches just to have a little extra there. So you're just going to wrap that and tie it around one side. Here you can see I had a little bit more and did it on the left side. Then this gets added to your card base with dimensionals. And just place that right in the center. We're now going to add our flowers to the center area. And these are popped up with dimensionals. I just used the little minis and placed them behind the stamped parts. And so you're not going to actually see them through any of the vellum. So now these are ready to add to my card. And I like to start with the larger image. And I'm going to bring it down just a little bit and tuck it underneath. And just place that right in the center, kind of coming off to the left a little bit. At the top, I'm going to add this large petal. I think I'm actually going to bring it a little straighter. More like that. So add the large petal. And then this small petal goes right here. I'll give you a close-up of that. And then the small leaf. Okay, so I'm going to bring it actually down a little bit and a little closer to that first stem, just so it's not sitting right next to that edge. And then that will go over the top of that stem, just like that. So now we're going to add our greeting down at the bottom. I've already cut out the bubble that says sending, and that's going to go right over our twine. So I have cut out and stamped my label that says a note of thanks, but I wanted to just share with you really quickly a tip about using the adhesive sheets when cutting out this really thin sending. It's just such a delicate die that the adhesive sheets is just so helpful. So you're going to add that to a scrap piece of basic black cardstock. You have the adhesive sheet underneath on the bottom, and then you add your die to the top, and then run that through your Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And then that comes apart. Just be really careful with it. It's very delicate. And then you can remove the paper backing. And what you can do is just do a section at a time so that it's not super sticky. And you've got your background piece, and then you just try to find the center of that background and then slowly add it all the way down. Make sure to remove those little areas between your word or your letters. Okay, so just like that. There is a little dot for the eye. I think it's still inside my die. Yep. So I'm going to use my Take a Pick tool to pop it out, and then you can use your Take a Pick to try to separate the paper backing from the actual cardstock. And then you can see here that it's just sitting right at the tip of my Take a Pick tool, and I can position where I want it to go. So just like that. So super easy. And then you'll add this to your card with dimensionals as well. So if you want to bring your bow down just a little bit, just so it's in the place where you want it, I need it to be underneath my greeting. So I want to bring it down just a little bit so that the greeting can sit above it. And then add my greeting. Just like that. And then your little label with dimensionals as well. And that goes right in the center, like so. And that card is all done. Love that fun technique in the background. You can see that beautiful texture over the blending. It just really adds a lot to the card. Make sure to stick around to the end of the video where I will share with you some more cards that I made using this fun Sending Smiles bundle. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about card number 2. For your first step, you're going to do the same thing and you're going to stamp and heat emboss on vellum cardstock with Versamark and white embossing powder. You're going to go ahead and cut those out, and that's where I am right now. So what I do next is I'm actually going to flip them over and work on the back side. And you're going to take your blending brushes, and you don't really need to pick up too much more color than what you may already have in them from the blending the background. And these are the same colors that I used for card number 1. And you actually just blend the color right onto the vellum. So you can make these as dark as you want. The color can rub off of the vellum. But if you do let it dry, then it kind of will stay there. So just don't touch it too much. And it just creates this really fun color, kind of like a neon color look. It's just a really fun technique there. So you're going to do the parakeet party to all of the leaves and stem pieces. Then these tiny little flowers here, these ones I'm going to do in the Tahitian tide. So flip those over. Looks like I do need a little extra color on that one too. Then the medium size flower I'm going to do in Sweet Sorbet. It's going to give me this really pretty bright pink. And then on these tall ones, I'm actually going to do a 2-color blend. So a little bit of the Sweet Sorbet at the bottom, and then we'll do the Starry Night at the top. And the Starry Night actually kind of turns into a little bit of a purple color here. If you want to come back with the Sweet Sorbet, you can blend a little more red into it too, just to make sure that it's got good coverage. And it just gives a really fun, different look to your cards. All right, so now that I've done that, I've also stamped and embossed with the white embossing powder, my greetings. And I'm just going to go ahead and start putting this card together. I have embossed with that same gingham embossing folder another piece that is 4 inches by 5 1/4, just like my first card, and I'm going to add that to the front. So next I'm going to take some basic black cardstock, stamp my greeting at the bottom. I have a piece of twine here that is 22 inches. I added an extra inch. This piece is smaller. It's 3 inches by 5 1/4. So I don't need a piece of twine that is long like the one, like I should have done 24 inches on that last one. So this should give me plenty of twine to tie a bow, and I'm using the white twine from the same Baker's Twine Essential Pack. I'm going to tie a knot first just to make it nice and easy to tie a bow. And then you can trim those ends. You'll get something that looks like this. This is going to go in the center of my card with some dimensionals. So the next step is to add our stamped and colored images. And I have already added dimensionals to the back. Just want to make sure that they are covering, that the image is actually covering the dimensional so you don't see it through the vellum. And I'm going to begin with the single leaf stem image here, and that goes in the center. And then these 2 leaves without a stem go on each side. like that. You can see how adding it to the basic black really makes them pop. Then I'm just going to kind of randomly add some of the flowers. So I like how the tall flowers look when you kind of tuck them in around the ones without the stem. So that's what I'm kind of going to go for here. And then we'll add another one up here at the top. So there's the first layer of flowers. Then let's add these pink ones next. I'll place that here on the stem. This one I'm actually going to place underneath, kind of as like a little peeking through flower right there. And then I've got, so I'll give you a close-up of that one. And then I've got our blue flowers, which I'm going to add just kind of randomly around here, like that. So next I'm going to add my greeting, and what I've done is I've taken the edge of my dimensionals and I've cut a thin strip, and I'm just going to cut that into sections and add it behind some of the larger letters, and that will hold my greeting in place. So for example, this one right here on the G, I also am going to do the D, and then the S, and those three sections should really hold that greeting in place. You just want to double check that you don't see it through the vellum on the front. And that goes right above the twine. Let's bring this twine down just a little bit at the base of the flowers. Just like that, and that card is all done. Now before I say goodbye, I want to share with you 3 more card ideas using the Sending Smiles stamp set and the coordinating sending dies. And these are all different and really, really fun. This one, I created 3 sections and then stamped them. They're all stamped right onto the cardstock. And I used a lot of those new in colors as well. It's just some really pretty colors. I stamped sending in Versamark right also on top of the cardstock, and then he embossed it with black embossing powder and then did a little label. So this one was a really simple card, but it was a little time consuming with just the measuring and the taping and then the stamping, but not a lot of materials needed for this one. This one, I used the leaf image kind of more as a background pattern here. Added some other images, like the splatter comes from a different stamp. Then there's these little tiny flowers that are in the stamp set, and added those to the background as well. Then just did some flower images and added a fun greeting from a different stamp set. And again, you can find some information on these cards on my blog, and the link to that will be in the description below. They'll be on the same page, blog page, as the instructions for the cards we just did, so you can find those there. I'll list some of the products that I used there. Then this is the last card. This is another one that's been stamped on the card base, and then just did some pop-up with some basic white cardstock, and then this cute little bee from a different stamp set, and then some splattering and a nice large greeting there. So some really beautiful cards made with the Sending Smiles stamp set and sending dies. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching me create these beautiful cards today using some fun blending techniques. If you're interested in getting more information on the cards that I shared today, you can visit my blog, creativechelsea.com. Thanks so much for watching. Have a creative day. Bye.